Today we are going to work on section 4.2, which is to graph linear equations. First of all, we have to decide which of the 2 points lies on the graph of the line. We have 2x plus y equal 10. And so when you put the point 4, 3 in for x and y, we determine that 2 times 4 plus 3 equals 10. That gives us 8 plus 3 equals 10, which is 11 equals 10. That is a false statement. 4, 3 does not lie on the line because when you substitute the numbers in for x and y, you get a false statement. How about negative 4, 18? Let's substitute those numbers in for x and y. When you substitute the negative 4 in for x and the 18 for y, you get a true statement. 10 equals 10. So yes, the point negative 4, 18 lies on the line. Let us now solve the equation for y. Remember that when you solve for y, that is function form. That is y equals everything else to the other side. Our equation negative 6x plus y equal 11 becomes y equals 11 plus 6x. Y is on one side, everything else is on the other. This was a pretty easy one to do. The next one takes a couple more steps. You have 8x plus 2y equals 10. First, you want to move the 8x to the other side. That will give you 2y equals 10 minus 8x. And then we have to take care of the 2 that is with the y. Everything has to be divided by 2 on both sides of the equation. That will give us y equals 5 minus 4x. Let's do this one where we also have to deal with some negatives. 6x minus 3y equals a negative 9. We first want to move the 6x to the other side. That gives us negative 3y equals negative 9 minus 6x. Then you want to divide by a negative 3 on all sides of the equation. That means every term gets divided. And that leaves us with y equal to 3 plus 2x. Notice how your negatives work. When you have double negatives, that becomes a positive. Let's graph the equation 2y minus 4x equals 10. The first thing that we should do is we need to solve for y. So we have to move our negative 4x to the other side. That becomes 2y equals 10 plus 4x. Then we divide everybody by 2, and we have y equals 5 plus 2x. Once we have the equation solved for y, we can determine what x's we want to use. You may use any x's you want that actually stay on the graph. Please use 3 points. So I want you to choose 3 x's. I chose negative 1, 0, and 1. When you put those x's into your equation, you come up with the y's to be 3, 5, and 7. So now I have 3 coordinates, negative 1, 3, 0, 5, and 1, 7. These are all points that lie on this line. So we're going to plot all 3 points, and then we draw a line through those 3 points. Please make sure your line extends beyond the 3 points that you have drawn. Let's graph x equals negative 6. This is a special kind of equation. Notice that x has to be equal to a negative 6. There are no y values in that equation. We get to choose any number we want for y. When we plot these 3 points that we have negative 6, negative 2, negative 6, 0, and negative 6, 2. We draw a line through them, and that is a vertical line. X equals negative 6 is a vertical equation. Any equation that is just x equals a number is a vertical equation. Y equals 4 is another special equation. Notice there is no x in this equation, and we have our y's have to be 4s. We get to put any x in that we want to. I have chosen 2, 0, and negative 2. So now I have the coordinates 2, 4, 0, 4, and negative 2, 4. When we plot these points, we see that they form on the horizontal, and we draw a line through those points, and we have a horizontal line. Any equation that is y equals just a number, there are no x's, that will always be a horizontal line. We're going to graph the function with the given domain and also identify the range of the function. Our equation is y equals 2x minus 2. It's already in y equals format, but we have a constraint on our domain. It says that the x's have to be greater than or equal to 0. So I have x starting at 0 and then getting bigger, so going to 1 and then to 2. I could choose more points. 3 is enough. When I put 0 in for x, I get a -2. When I put 1 in for x, I get 0. And when I put 2 into the equation for x, I get 2. I'm going to plot these 3 coordinates. Those 3 coordinates, notice I start with 0, -2, and when I draw my line, it's not going to actually be a line, it's a ray, because I can't have any y's, or excuse me, any x's that are smaller than 0. They have to start at 0 and get bigger, so I can have nothing that's down in that third quadrant. We also are going to tell what the range is. Notice that the range has to be what your y's are. If my domain started at x being 0, then I have to look at my corresponding y's. So my y's are starting at -2, and notice what happens to them. They get bigger and bigger as I keep going down my table. -2, then 0, then 2. So I say my y's, the range is y greater than or equal to a -2. Let's identify the range of this function. First thing we need to do is put it in y equals mx plus, or y equals format, excuse me. So we are going to put that in -3y equals 9 minus 6x, and that is then y equals -3 plus 2x. I've chosen my x's to be 1, 0, and -1 because my domain says that x's have to be less than 1. So I start with the number 1, and then I get smaller and smaller. When I put those x's into the equation, I found out that my corresponding y's are -1, -3, and -5. Notice that my x's start at +1. My y's, the corresponding y, starts at a -1. So I'm going to say my y's are going to be less than a -1, because notice the numbers keep getting smaller after that very first one. Our final thing is a story problem. Bicycle rental shop rents bicycles for $8 per hour. The total cost in dollars for renting a bicycle H hours is given by the function C equals 8H. Once you get to the rental shop, you figure you can rent a bicycle for at most 5 hours. They want us to graph the function and identify its domain and its range, and then find out also what is the most that you will pay for renting the bicycle. H is our x and C is our y. Notice how I have that labeled on the graph. And we are going to start out with not renting the bike at all. That would be 0 hours. And then we know the most we can rent it is 5 hours. So I put that at the very bottom, and I just chose a number in between. 3 sounded good to me. So now when I put the numbers 0, 3, and 8 into the equation, I find out that C is equal to 0, 24, and 40. We can actually graph those 3 points first of all, and then we're going to draw a ray through them. And please notice that our domain starts at 0 and ends at 5, so the H has to be somewhere between those two numbers. 0 is less than or equal to H, is less than or equal to 5. Our range starts at 0 and goes up to 40. So 0 is less than or equal to C, is less than or equal to 40. What is the most that you'll pay for renting the bicycle? The most that we will pay is $40. Thank you for listening.